Good morning, all. Let's restart. Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry. Um, I think everybody can hear me now. So welcome. Thank you all for joining us on this third webinar in the series of Accelerating 21st Century Government in the Caribbean. And it is jointly hosted by ARIN and the CTU. We would like to recognize and thank Isaac St. Vincent and the Grenadine for their support in this webinar. Before we get started, I would like to show you around so that we can all participate successfully. Please introduce yourself in the chat in this order: first name, last name, organization, and country. So for example, for me, it would be Anne Rochelle Ine, ARIN, USA, as I put in the chat, and you can all see that. During the presentation, you can ask questions in the Q&A box that is at the bottom of your screen, and you can also, I forgot to say that the chat button is actually at the bottom of your screen also, and I think by now you're all seasoned webinar attendees and participants, so this shouldn't be too much of a problem. If there is any, please put something in the chat so we can help you. ARIN-CTU ask that all attendees are guided by the code of conduct of both organizations, while in the chat and in the Q&A, question and answers. Violations of this code of conduct will result in the removal of the offender from the webinar. So the theme, again, as I said, inside the 21st century government in the Caribbean for this webinar is measuring Caribbean digital transformation, a data-driven approach. We have the honor of having, three speakers that are absolutely great. I would like to introduce first Honorable Melford Nicholas, who is the Minister of Information, Broadcasting, Telecommunication, and Information Technology in Antigua and Barbuda, and President also of the CTU General Conference of Ministers. We also have Nadia Vincent. She's the CEO of Digital Transformation Leaders, and she is a Digital Transformation and Innovation Executive Advisor. Then we will have Frederic Bourassa. Frederic is a statistician at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It is not necessary, I think, right now to read their full bios. You have that in the pre-webinar slides. And so I am not sure Honorable Nicholas has joined us yet. So if he has, he will go first. If not, I think I'm going to give the floor right now to Nadia Vincent. Nadia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne Rachel. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you today. And I will be addressing the leadership imperatives for digital transformation in the Caribbean, and as well lessons learned from digital transformation around the world. So I will start sharing my screen to show you my presentation. So leadership imperatives for Caribbean digital transformation and lessons learned from around the globe. My first slide, I've taken some slides from Mrs. Lewis' previous presentation, slide that you probably have seen already, which show the old way we've done business, which is the case of many governments around the world. And unfortunately, I have to let you know that this is over today. This was the industrial age and this is dead. And today, the digital age is showing us is going to burst some myth that we had about the industrial age. We sometimes believe that public administration, non-profit organization, that they are not business, but it's not true. They are all businesses, but with different ROI, different expectation from them. And for the public institutions, that's the same thing. They are businesses, and the ROI is the well-being of citizens. It's the quality of life of citizens in the country that they are managing, country or island. And today, every organization will need to adjust and treat the administration as a business, except with different ROI, not for profit, like for a traditional business, but securing the well-being and the progress of the citizen. And we take into account the Caribbean. When we are looking at the Caribbean map, we see there's many little islands, many different countries. Sometimes they share the same language, but different authority, different currencies. So it's a mix. So there are different cultures, although we are all part of a region, which is the Caribbean. And we need to take that into account for digital transformation. And there is one region that's very similar to the Caribbean that has a lot to share. The challenges. And this is Central Europe, but I will be focusing on a small country. Currently, I'm living in Belgium. And Belgium is a very small country. I don't know if you can see my arrow. This is Belgium, just this is very small. And we have the giant countries like France, Germany around, and bigger one, the United Kingdom and Ireland. And here you see the Benelux. The Benelux is Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands. So there are three small countries grouped here together. And with the globalization, what happened is that those little countries, they cannot be competitive in anything because of their size. So the buying power of France, of Germany, of England, it's it's out of the world for those countries. And those countries, they had many monopolies like every country. And I'm going to show you how they had to completely reinvent the administration, reinvent the business to survive in the digital age, because the digital age is completely different from the industrial age. And here, I'm taking into account Belgium and some institutions that Belgium had to change both for the public sector and as well from the private sector, because the public sector had many investment in the private sector. Electrabel was the electricity and gas supplier for the whole country. It was a monopoly. It was the government infrastructure. So what happened is that the country had to let it go for some countries, for some institutions who had bigger buying power. And who bought it was Gaz de France, Suez, which is a French company, because the government had no business staying in there, because if it did, then the citizen will suffer in the cost, in the price they will be paying electricity. We had the same thing happen with Atos Code Line. It used to be called Banksys. That was the electronic payment, every transaction, all the banking that happened in the country. It was half owned by the government and half owned by several banks, a coalition of banks. Again, the government had to bail out because it was not competitive for it anymore. And then they had to focus more on specializing the country on things that will bring more revenue. Then there was the European institution that's taking more and more space here. So that's still public institution management. We had BNP Paribas. That's another bank. That is another Belgian bank that was bought by BNP. BNP is a French bank, but Fortis was a Belgian bank. Here you see, to keep the identity of Belgium, they keep the Fortis, but again, bad. ING Bank, that was not ING is Netherlands. So they bought another Belgian bank. Same for the supermarkets. Carrefour, it's a French supermarket chain. So to show that all those institutions, 20 years ago, all the name will have been different on this slide, but they all had to be globalized. They all had to be transformed so that the public administration can focus on creating a new ecosystem for the citizen, an ecosystem that will bring more, improve the quality of life of the citizen. And this ecosystem, that's what the digital age shows, that running business today, sometimes it's more rewarding to create an ecosystem for businesses to thrive instead of running the business. And it's the same thing happening with Amazon, where they create the ecosystem, but they don't have the stores, but they are still earning much more than any store. They become the biggest store in the world. Same thing that happened with Airbnb. That's part of globalization. And who more than government can create infrastructure? And every country in the world, every government should focus more on creating infrastructure, because the infrastructure, that's what's going to bring the better quality of life, the better economic development for the country. And how it happened? For the Caribbean, I see there are 5 main digital imperatives. They are the digital opportunities that I'm going to show. First, there need to be a new vision for the Caribbean, and that should be 2 visions, in fact. The first is the vision of the Caribbean region, and the second is the country or the island, because although we have many different countries, every little country, every little island, they each have their own identity. And neglecting that could cause a lot of problem if we neglect the identity of one island. Point 2, investment partnership towards sustainable and reliable infrastructure in the region. And it should be both government and businesses investing together, because the cost of infrastructure, it will be more sustainable to join forces together than to operate alone. And third, there is an excellent opportunity to develop efficiency in everything and improve lives with digital transformation. 4, there is a massive business and economic development opportunity for the region through digital innovation. 5, there is an opportunity for better disaster management, poverty reduction, security improvement, nature protection, resource discovery, and revaluation. And here, this is an ecosystem, and this ecosystem was proposed by CTU. This is excellent because that's the most challenging part, which is the vision. Developing vision, that's one thing that caused a lot of failure, because whether business or government, sometimes they cannot see far for the future. And having a leader such as CTU developing that vision for the government is a step ahead. And the second point as well, which is the citizen EID, it is the same thing for the vision. So that's an ecosystem that will facilitate not only the citizens, but as well businesses coming on that ecosystem. Because, for example, creating that ecosystem will facilitate the development of businesses, new businesses in the Caribbean region, and as a result will improve the quality of life in the Caribbean. So we are looking at a poll, the poll that you've been taking. We have 2 questions in the poll, which I'm addressing at this moment. So the first one was about the top 5 of the 21st century government initiative that will that will provide more result, more impact for you. So what do we get for it? So security, health, and education should be the top priority, and then employment and housing. So that's what's more important for you. That is great. And we have the second question. The second question is about whether or not you're currently leading a digital and transformation initiative for your organization now, whether it is a business or an administration. We'd like to know if there is any leader at the moment doing it. That's great. 78% of you are leading a digital transformation initiative. That is great. That means you're moving forward. And I'm going to show you wherever you are at today, leading your transformation. I'm going to give you some input so that you can avoid failure or delay. And this is part of 20 years of experience of lesson learned. So that is the best roadmap for leading any digital transformation initiative. And it's in the order of success. The first one is to clarify the vision. And one thing I must say that the CTU has done a great job proposing the vision already with different point to implement and procedure. So that is already one great thing. The second thing is to define the goals, the order of priority, and to allocate budget. In your different countries, or if it's for your business, you will need to take those visions and transform them into goals. Different goals, the order of priority, and to allocate budget. We already saw some of your priority, which were more towards security, I don't remember them all, but we'll review them later since you already specified them. So as you have done here, so it's important that you specify your priorities and so that you can allocate the budget for it and implement. 3, leadership, team creation, and investment for self-transformation. Transformation doesn't happen if we do not have a team leading it. One person cannot lead transformation. And it's very important to invest in people so that people are self-transformed, so that they help in the transformation instead of stopping the transformation, because it happened a lot that many people will sabotage the transformation instead of contributing to it. 4, define your digital strategy, innovation, and detailed roadmap. In that strategy, we are talking about both business strategy and technology strategy. This is something I experience. I see a lot of disaster with it whenever I'm called to rescue a transformation. Often they miss the part of the study, the feasibility, the technology strategy, and they invest straight in technology and going head toward failure. So this is very important, like for all what the CTU has developed and offer. So you will need to translate it into detailed strategy for your administration, for your business. 5, resource re-evaluation and partnership strategy. Today, resources are not always what they used to be. There are things that used to be trash, but today they are valuable resources. So there is a need to reevaluate which resources we have and what are the ones we can add value to. And then to go for partnership so that we can face the cost of the transformation. It's more sustainable and it's cheaper to partner to have the transformation. Point 6, invest in people's self-transformation and digital education. And that include the citizen, the customer, everyone involved, because the digital shift is big, it's huge for everyone. And 7, technology investment. You see the technology come almost last before implementation. And the big mistake many organizations make is that they invest in the technology first and they go straight toward failure. 8, implementation. You don't have to implement everything at once, but with small iterations, as long as you have your priorities, you will get there. And 9, monitoring and evaluating, because transformation is a work in progress. It takes a long time and we never finish. By the time you finish, there will be more innovation. So that's the new digital age. And 10, continuous innovation and improvement. So we learn the lesson from point 9 and we try to do better. So that's the best roadmap I use for all digital transformation initiative and the guarantee to succeed. There is the digital transformation formula that I use, which is digital transformation is equal to individual transformation time business transformation time technology transformation divided by fear. Because at every level, we need to transform first the person, the individual, then the business, which is the strategy, and the technology we need to have in it. And the last one is fear. Fear because many people are fearful, especially in public institutions where many people expect to do their career and doing the same thing. They are realizing now there are so many changes for them. And the human brain is not made to embrace change. Now the COVID-19 is forcing many people out of their comfort zone to really see the value of digital transformation. But the urgency, we had to do it a long time ago. And I can tell that the CTU has been doing it for all the work they've been doing, creating the vision, creating the awareness, and I can bet not everybody embrace it. That show how the fear of the new, the uncertainty is there. And many people need to have feel obligated before they decide and act on it. So that formula, once you transform the individual, the business, the technology, and you reduce fear the most that you can, there is no way you will not succeed with digital transformation. And finally, the top 7 lessons learned from around the globe to watch out for in the Caribbean. I choose those especially for the Caribbean because what I see is all the things shared with the small countries in Europe in terms of language, in terms of size, in terms of different cultures and power. So first, define and clarify your vision first, because the vision challenge cause most failure with digital transformation. And some other point may cause some delay and then you adjust, but when the vision is wrong, oftentimes it's starting over. And by that time, most of organization, they are out of budget, they cannot restart again. So vision is very important. Point 2, the public sector transformation is the most challenging and it's slower. The only exception I saw is Dubai. Dubai, it's the public sector leading the transformation, but for all other countries, it's the private sector forcing it and the public sector is the last one to adopt it. Because there is an extreme feeling of more comfort in the public organization and it is globally. They simply do not go at the same rhythm. And also there is the highest level of resistance to change in the public sector. 3, international partnership experience identity crisis, causing high resistance and solution delay. So it's very important to invest in self-transformation. This is something I've seen everywhere. The French-speaking Belgian and the Dutch-speaking Belgian, you might see them look alike, but each they want to keep the identity, and that will be the same thing in the Caribbean. The Jamaican will want to keep the identities toward the Belgian. It's just natural, it's just human. So that's why we'll have to divide. For every country, they will as well have to show what they have to offer and define their own identity. Point 4, poorly defined digital strategy lead to poor agreement, increased cost, delivery delay, conflict, and failure, even with industrially customized solution. There is something I've seen out there is that many organizations, they think they buy some products, some solutions, some digital solution that they sell to them, and they start implementing it without strategy, without defining their business strategy and their goal. And as a result, they fail because those solutions, they are created for, with a global view, with a wide angle view, but they are not specialized to any organization. So every organization needs to define their goals, their business strategy, to customize it, to make it their own. Point 5, review and reinvent your processes. Most are not efficient for the digital age. Imagine that you will take a road from point A to point B to go a place, driving your car. And then all of a sudden you have an helicopter. If you are flying over the road, again, then you are missing the efficiency. So you need a new map for the new vehicle you have. It's the same thing with the digital age. And 6, don't lead with the technology, but use technology to improve leadership and management. So use it as a tool and invest in your leaders, because your leaders and managers, they are the ones driving the transformation, not the technology. And 7, data is your best friend for business intelligence, AI, innovation, and everything else. So it's very important to work together in the Caribbean, to team up, to invest in infrastructure so that you can have not only the data, but as well to own your data. It's very important to own your data. And finally, my only advice for you is to take the lead now, because we are experiencing what we call the digital tsunami. Before, we had one foot in the industrial age, one foot in the digital age. Now we do not have the option anymore. We are shifting fully to the digital age. And a failed business is the business that doesn't bring ROI, doesn't bring profit to his shareholder. And a failed state is a state, or it's a country that doesn't provide enough economic development for the citizens. So I encourage you to see the digital age with the many opportunities as an opportunity for you to improve the quality of life of your citizens, of your country, but you will have to take a different approach than for the industrial age. So craft your digital vision, specify your goal, allocate your budget, and move forward. And these are my contact details if you need to reach out to me anytime. So I thank you very much, and I will be very happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Nadia. And I don't think we want to be failed states, and thanks for the lessons. I think we have 4 questions right now in the chat, but and comments. Given I see that Honorable Melford Nicholas has joined us, I think we're going to give him the floor first, and we will try and make sure that you can all answer the questions probably after that. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Melford Nicholas, our next speaker. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Ines. The pleasure is mine to be a part of these proceedings. I want to acknowledge the fact that I've come on a bit late, and that the protocols would have previously been established. I've recognized from the persons who are attending, I've recognized some familiar faces, some familiar names. It transpired that I had some personal engagement with respect to some cabinet proceedings this morning, which I'm sure my audience here would be sympathetic to in relation to the times that we're in. But I believe the tone of today's discussion is really going to be focused on now that COVID-19 has visited itself upon us, and the imperative that comes with it, the need for the digital transformation of the Caribbean. I would want to posit in the first instance, that the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, of which I am currently sitting president, has been advocating this particular position for a very long time. Members of the audience might be aware that over the past 5 years, we have been staging respective road shows across the Caribbean, ushering in the concept of having a 21st century government. I believe that that would have achieved a degree of impetus back in January of 2018, when in collaboration with the government of Antigua and Barbuda and my ministry, that the CTU staged 2 meetings in Antigua, one having to deal with the Caribbean leadership of our governments. Several prime ministers and state leaders had met in Antigua at the St. James's Club and had got the benefit of a presentation from the CTU and certainly from visiting delegations from Estonia and Georgia in relation to what the transformation process would have involved. Immediately upon that, the technicians and the other ministerial officials would have met further at a conference in Antigua, looking at the whole question of the methodologies for this whole digital transformation process, where we would have looked at infrastructure, we would have looked at legislation, we would have looked at the whole question of process management and indeed the levels of automation that is required. The CARICOM governments would have, in the year prior, would have accepted the recommendation from the CTU for a single ICT space. And all of this are the precursor to what visited itself upon us within the first half of this year. I can tell the audience here from my own personal experience that when COVID came, it came with the cruel reality that it was not in a position to negotiate. We could not negotiate. Once we entered shutdown, governments had to think about how it was going to continue to provide services, how it was going to continue to meet, and indeed to continue to deliberate on the public business. In Antigua's case, certainly because I was in a position of influence, and because much of the preparation would have been done in relation to in relation to infrastructure, in relation to certain application systems that are available. The government was able to have immediate continuity in the sense that for the first time, our cabinet proceedings moved to a virtual environment in March. And I believe at the end of March, we even had a session of Parliament in which certain regulations and resolutions that had to be enacted by Parliament in way of public administration was done virtually. I think we were the first country within the Caribbean that might have had a parliamentary procedure where regulations and legislation were enacted in a virtual environment. So the government had learned very quickly and had adapted very quickly to the changing environment in which COVID imposed itself upon us. Because of the requirement for social distancing, even now, many of the ministerial functions are conducted part virtual and part in a brick and mortar environment. And so the imperative for governments of the Caribbean to be able to see that there is no going back to the old standard of operation, the environment that now presents itself with the reduction for travel, with the modalities that we are currently utilizing for these types of virtual meetings. This has become an important facet, and immediately it focuses on some of the prerequisites that were required. More recently, the government of Barbados, I believe, soon to be followed by the government of Antigua, has announced visa-free residency programs to attract persons to those shores to ensure that they can work from within the Caribbean and still provide services into the metropoles. The first and immediate question that was asked was, what of the internet infrastructure? I don't think we can ever get away from a conversation about our infrastructure, the cost, the availability, and the effective quality of service that we are providing from our respective operators. So right away, any of our endeavors is actually going to crisscross the notion of having a sufficient and significantly sized and certainly affordable internet infrastructure to support what we're doing. But if we were to think that the infrastructure is going to be just the only linchpin in our consideration, it will be unfortunate. What we have got to do now as host governments, as Caribbean governments, is to get to the next level. How do we actually transform? How do we convert the operations of government, the internal affairs of government, in a manner that it is truly working in the digital age? And for that, a number of governments are finding themselves in a position where we have to play catch up. It is my hope and my expectation that before our next series of liberation, certainly within the CTU, we'll be able to have our own league tables so that we can see who amongst us within the CTU group of family, the family group of the CTU, who amongst us are best in class in any particular one area, whether it is legislation or whether it is any particular type of application. And we're going to have to learn very quickly and to extend the learning curve in that respect. What we're going to do about the digital identification of our citizens, what we're going to do about the records management in our various individual ministerial silos. How are we going to be able to harness the vast information that is stored within those silos, and how we begin to utilize different application systems to be able to extract from these silos useful information for planning purposes. And of course, how are we going to engage with our citizens, both to provide them with the services that they are required to obtain from us. And in the process of providing those services, how are we going to engage with them utilizing digital formats and digital technology? And more importantly, how can we begin a new level of engagement with our citizens through this particular medium? And these are the challenges that each of our state governments are faced with. But more importantly, I would go on to say that the greatest challenge that we are going to be now faced with is how do we transition? Yes, those of us who are at the cutting edge, who have been forced by circumstances to adapt straight away and to jump in knee deep into this new realm of information communication technology driven development. How do we get the rest of our public servants to transition? And this is going to be the slowest walk because as I've learned, and many persons would have learned in the implementation of new technologies, acquiring the technology and having the systems in place is perhaps the easiest bit. The hardest bit is going to be the change management and the changing behaviors and the training and the retraining and the reskilling of our people. And so these are challenges that we are about to traverse over the next few months, and the cost as well of dealing with this transition, not only in terms of acquiring the systems, the application systems, and putting the networks in place, and in terms of having the need to train the persons, but the software is a particular issue for us. There are gaps in our development process in terms of the capacity of our people within the Caribbean for broad scale development of different software that we're going to require specific to our needs. We have to be careful along this way that we do not continue the hegemony of being dependent on external agencies or external economies for those particular application services that we require for our particular needs. And to this extent, the need for us to be able to engage our university systems, our university networks, to ensure that we are actually producing this quality and the quantity of personnel that we need to be our future software engineers and coders to be able to develop the solutions and the application systems for our own needs, and to be able to return our share of that economic pie within our region. And not only to provide services for ourselves, but who knows, to be in a position to export some of those solutions as well, and to participate in the ever-expanding and ever-growing ICT market. So those, I think, in broad strokes, are the challenges in which Caribbean governments are faced with now. That is the reality. Those are the barrels that we're going to be looking down post-COVID. And I would just want to posit that as my intervention or my injection into the conversation, and hopefully as we continue the conversation this morning and beyond, that we will enrich ourselves in terms of what are those steps that we have to take. I look forward to your questions, and hopefully I can provide some answers if they're within me to do. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melfold. And I would like to join a little bit one of the things that you said with what Nadia Vincent said. Basically, I think the crux of the matter here is how do we come together as a region to look into what are the gaps that we can fill for each other? Is that something that you think is feasible going forward with the region?
Yes, at the CTU level, we have deliberated upon this before. And I think the notion of having even some sandbox solutions to many of the things that we have done. I'll give an example, a real work example. A few business cycles ago, we made a determination that we had to develop our own certificate of authority as we were moving towards digital identity in our particular environment. And as we were moving to automate and digitize one of our registries, our business registry, we recognize here in Antigua that both in Anguilla and the BVI, who has a vast number of offshore trust companies registered in that particular environment, they had previously gone along the route of automation. And so we made a determination that we were going to learn from those two jurisdictions, much as they were smaller jurisdictions, but they had the benefit of going further up on the learning curve than we did. And so we learned from them. We took our personnel in and we collaborated at that level. I was able to get some of my technicians to be nested in the environment in Anguilla. And once we learned from them, we were able to adopt their processes and adopt their solutions. And of course, fine-tuned it to our own needs. And this we've got to do 1,000 times. Jamaica, as I know, have made certain overtures there at the moment right now, have been able to have their passports renewed internationally by their citizens in their diaspora. That's a process that I'm looking at very much because we're going to want to do the same thing here in Antigua. And as I say, as we meet and we have these engagements and we are aware of how we are dealing with certain treatments, we're going to be able to learn from each other. But the specific gaps that I see would be in terms of software development. I think we're paying a high premium. And what software developers outside the region are doing, they are charging each of us the development costs. So it's not like they're saying, listen, we have built a solution for you. You can then transfer the solution that you have to Barbados, and in which case we're doing a white label reduction of what you have to modify it for Barbados. Barbados, again, will be charged the same developmental costs. And I think in that respect, we are paying too high a cost for software development and for application and systems development in our region. That's a gap that I think we can focus on. I believe our university systems would have something to do with that particular space.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. And there is actually a question that in the chat that was a little bit basically on the same level. Stephen Jolly was asking, is there a list of technologies that CTU is working or developing now? And I would say probably not really technologies, but as you said, I guess fields that in capacity building in general, and that is something that is pervasive just about everywhere. Capacity building has become really, capacity development has become the one crux of resolving quite a few things to make sure that people understand where we're coming from, where we want to go, what do we need to do to make that happen. So would you want to elaborate on that in terms of some of the things that CTU ministers are doing right now together on the
CTU
infrastructure
as a body,
technology?
yes, I'd welcome to give another stab at it. I'd give another stab at it if you might. CTU as a body, it's really a facilitator. So it is not going to be an all-in solution for everyone. We are trying to facilitate innovation. We're trying to facilitate collaboration. This is a word, collaboration, that we stress a lot at CTU. Let me say this. In respect of, at an enterprise level, companies who are doing software solutions. Let's give an example. Most of the passports our e-passports in the region. Many countries have now moved towards an e-passport with a microchip inserted in the passport with the particular information on the passport holder inserted into that microchip. Many of our nation states are moving towards automation of our immigration systems. Most of our border systems have automated that particular process. And that is because of the enhanced focus that has been placed on cross-border security, international security across borders. So we've had to do that as a compunction. The challenge that we have in terms of how do we get the application systems to be able to do that in the window and the time frame that we have to do it. That particular opportunity, an economic opportunity that comes with that in terms of developing the solution for it, the Caribbean states have had to rely on developers outside. So I'll give a case in point. There are two providers that I know have contended very much for this space, and that would be Canadian Banknotes in Ottawa and Delarue in the UK. And as a result of that, they have had many interactions with various state governments in the Caribbean and have provided various solutions. I contend that one solution could have fit all with some white label modification. And we have not had that opportunity to collaborate before the fact. And so we are paying a prince's ransom in each and every case for that particular solution. I think there are going to be other application solutions that are going to be necessary for us. Our police force, our security forces are going to need solutions for that. Our medical facilities that have just now been tested by COVID, our medical public health facilities are in need of record management systems for billing, for patient records, so many things. And each of us have the requirement to provide public health services, and each of us has the need for an automated solution. Who is going to be the solution developer within the Caribbean? And we do not have these economic entities, and that's where I'm saying there's a dearth for that type of intervention for our own economic needs. And so we are relying on external service providers and paying too high a cost because we are paying the jeopardy of having to pay the development costs in each and every instance. And I think that is a significant gap in our economic process that I believe we have to have an engagement both at the university level and at the economic planning level within the Caribbean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicholas. And I think now we're going to move to our next panelist, who is, from the OECD, Frederic Bourassa. And Frederic is going to show us how basically the OECD has helped all of its member countries, actually the Caribbean included, in terms of how do you look at numbers and how do you analyze them, make them part of policies, and inform basically anything from broadband all the way to policies that are put in place locally. So thank you, Mr. Nicholas. I hope you can stay with us and look into this with us with Frederic. And yes.
I will be.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for staying. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Frederic. If you can put your camera on, Frederic.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Frederic is going to tell us about the statistician's toolkit and some of the ways that OECD has been working on these on measurements of the digital economy. Frederic, the floor is yours.
Yes, wait. Share my screen. Sorry. Is this working? Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Rachel. It's an honor to be a part of this webinar and to be invited by the ARIN and CTU countries. So I guess the reason of the presence of an OECD representative in this webinar could be found in the webinar title itself, the Caribbean Digital Transformation. A bit more than 1 year ago, the OECD launched the Going Digital project, which was a project to measure the digital transformation in the OECD countries and some other G20 countries. Here you can see the covers of the two paper publications. This project had also a very interesting interactive tools that you can see on the left side. It's this little flower which was available on by an app on a mobile device, telephone, tablet, or computer, allow people to select data according to different teams and to extract them for any countries they wanted, and in order to compare different aspects of the digital transformation in OECD countries and some other countries. You can see on the right side the different teams that were studied in this project. You have access, use, job, innovation, trust, market openness, etc. So it was a very wide and horizontal project that did mobilize the whole organization of the OECD. So where do I, okay, I'll just, yeah, I wanted to talk about the objective of the project as well. So as you can see, the objective are to improve the understanding of digital transformation and its impact on economy and society, to provide policymakers with tools that can help develop a forward-looking whole of government policy response, to explore ways of improving policy making itself and addressing the gap between technological change and policy development. So the project involved 14 OECD committees and 10 directorates. So as I said, it was a very horizontal project that mobilized the whole organization. So where do me and my team stand in this project? We stand in the two first aspects, the access and the use. In my division at the OECD, our specialty, our expertise is telecommunication policy analysis. And for that, as we see, we published some telecommunication review. Those are our most recent ones, and they concerned Latin America and a little bit Caribbean. So the most recent one is the Mexican one, and we had Colombia, a review of Colombia as well. And we published a toolkit, a digital economy toolkit for Latin America and Caribbeans. But as a moderator that we know very well told us recently, the Latin American part was quite developed, but the Caribbean part was not very developed. And hopefully this will improve in the future, but maybe today will be the first, we'll put the first brick on to improve this situation. So all telecom reviews are divided often in three parts. A first part, which is the market development analysis based on data. The second part is policy analysis based on policy questionnaire and policy research. And the third part is recommendation in order to improve the quality of service, the prices for the people, the access of the people, and also to improve the policy framework. So it worked. It worked for Mexico for sure, and hopefully it worked for the other countries too. So my own expertise is the data part. So when we do a telecom review, we have to collect data and analyze data of certain indicators. So here are the list of indicators we use for a telecom review usually. So it's quite wide, but it's simple at the same time. We collect data on revenue, communication revenue, telecom, and broadcasting most of the time. And we analyze the contribution of revenue to the GDP, the importance of the telecom sector in the whole economy. We also collect data on investment, which is very important for the development of the sector, and we check for the foreign direct investment. The third aspect is the most recurring one that we do on a very regular basis is collecting data on access, which are subscriptions, people's and business subscriptions to fixed and mobile networks. Fourth part is when we do a country telecom review, we like to have regional data in order to see the divide which exists between rural and urban area. We collect data on market shares, which are basically the subscriptions and revenue per operator, so we can see the evolution of competition in the country over time. We collect data on quality of service, which are these days a lot about broadband quality, and one of the aspects is broadband speed. So because in order to have a good online service, good online services these days, you need a minimum speed. If you don't have, like our threshold is around 20 to 30 megabytes per second. So if you don't have that speed, you will miss a lot of good services, online services. And we also gather data on coverage. We collect data on prices usually from website advertised prices. And also we collect data on the usage of the internet by households, individuals, and businesses. These data are collected through surveys, which is more costly and complicated, complex process because it has to be sent to a certain amount, certain number of families, and it takes more time. So I will talk about my own experience. How do the data collection is organized at the OECD? Okay. The OECD is a big organization, but it is divided into committees and into working parties. Working parties are groups of member countries who send their experts. The groups are on a very specific topic. So my working party is on the communication infrastructure services, policy analysis. So we 2 times a year, we have a meeting with the telecommunication experts from all member countries. And in those groups, in those meetings, civil society and businesses are also represented. So we have a very wide representation of all stakeholders of the telecom sector. And discussions in these meetings are wide. They are on policy, on different evolutions in countries, but we also have a discussion on data collection, and which is once again my expertise. So how do we collect data, telecom data, in these working parties? So because we have the experts with us, we can agree on a list of indicators to collect. These indicators must have a definition, an accurate definition, but still open for countries to be able to adapt their own reality. Of course, we agree on the timeline for data collection, on the publication date, the publication format, and then we do regular reviews of our data. So this way we can get a robust set of telecom data, which is very important. So I talked about enough of
Frederic?
Yes?
Could I ask you to speak a little bit louder? Yeah,
Oh.
or get, I guess, the microphone a bit closer to your mouth.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, I did talk enough about OECD, and I'll see what could be a good something interesting for the CTU as a region. Okay, the base, as I explained at the UCD, we agree on the list of indicators, definitions, etc. But the CTU countries are all, none of the CTU countries are member of the OECD, but they are all member of the ITU. And the ITU already has a very good framework for data collection. They have a database, as you see, with a very extensive list of indicators. All the indicators have definitions, which are summarized in the handbook. Very good, very well done. So this could be a good start. I mean, a good start for a potential future telecom review of the CTU region. The data already exists in for CTU countries in the ITU database, but I heard that some people are complaining about the robustness of the data. So as you see here, for fixed broadband per 100 inhabitants, you have most of countries gave data for 2018. A few are just 1 year behind, and same year for the mobile phone and mobile broadband. So data are available in the ITU database, but it would be good to be sure of the robustness of these data and to work on harmonization because as I asked when I was in St. Kitts in December, I asked about the statistical to the statistical responsible of OESC, and then we had a discussion about improvement that could be done on the data. So I would finish my presentation by saying that a good exercise to get the data to the public, and then to begin the process of policy analysis could be to create a broadband portal like we have in the OECD. The broadband portal is a good example of data which are collected every 2 times a year and put together in order to compare countries, and the collection, which is very it's done on a very regular basis. It creates a dynamic of good quality data, and it creates as I say, a good dynamic to improve the quality of data and to collect the data on a timely basis. So this is the first step for a good policy analysis, and then for measuring the digital transformation of the CTU area countries. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm sorry if you didn't hear me well all the time.
Thank you very much, Frederic. And thanks really for putting the crux where it has to be in terms of how do we measure and the robustness of the data. So if we can have our other panelists, if Mr. Nicholas is still here, this has actually triggered a question for me, given what Frederic is saying, harmonization of data, but also data that is given to institutions, how robust it is something that I think we're going to have to work on. And I wanted to ask Mr. Nicholas if he's still with us. I see that he's online, but I see him muted. But you know, when he comes back, I hope he can respond to the question of on the robustness and the harmonization of the data, across the region. So, Frederic, you also said that you were in a meeting in St. Kitts last year. And did you get a sense that people were aware, for example, that each country had a statistical office for these type of measurements? Did you have a feel that, we're talking about putting infrastructure, but an infrastructure is as good as what you put on it. And in terms of going digital, all of the aspects that you've shown us, from access all the way to society, jobs, and all of that, need to be informed so we can find some of the gaps and all of that. So if we're going to do this exercise, for example, for the Caribbean region, do you have the feeling that people would know where to start, where to find the data?
Well, yes, I think people will know where to start because all Caribbean countries are providing data to the ITU. Okay, so this is, as I said, ITU has data. I think the problem would be to make sure of the robustness of the data, to make sure that operators are giving the number of subscriptions and to go deeper into the industry, the sector, to just to be sure of the reliability of the data. But I think all countries have an office that gather telecom data. But I, of course, I didn't make a survey. I didn't talk to everybody. I just talked to a few people. Some were confident that things could improve, and some were more, let's say, they were not very optimistic, because I think sometimes it's good to have a group effect, like everybody say, well, the CTU countries is publishing a good an annual report on the connectivity in the country. So everybody, please get your things together and provide good data. And then they compare to each other and they say, well, I think we can improve our data in order to be maybe well.
To look into the gaps.
Yeah, to look, exactly. So sometimes, yeah, it has a positive effect to set one publication with a set time and a set format, so countries are happy to participate and to appear in that publication. It could be
good. So you actually have done this a lot, it seems, for some of the bigger countries. Is there any specific country in the Caribbean where you've kind of tried that? I think when you say Caribbean as the OECD, you've done at least a few things for, is it Dominica at least? Or
no, it's nothing I know about, actually.
Okay.
If it's the case. Right. Now, we work a lot with Latin America, because we have 3 member countries, and soon, very soon, Costa Rica. So it's, but now in the Caribbean, we don't have a lot of connection yet. Maybe it will
okay. Well, thanks for that. And we need to make that happen, definitely. I see that Mr. Nicholas is back with us. If you followed what Mr. Barasa was saying on his presentation with the OECD, he was talking about data that is available at ITU on the telecommunication infrastructure side. And one of the issues is probably, he said, robustness of the data and harmonization, again, around the region. So is there anything that you want to say around, statistical collection? We talked mostly, of course, with the ITU about telecommunication once, but, when we think of all of the other sectors that we're going to have to take digital, it is important that all of this data is available. What do you say, sir?
I think that is an important conversation. And in terms of how the data is collected, and is it collected in a uniform manner and reported, it's absolutely critical. So I would support the need for us to have a better regiment in place to be able to collect and disseminate this particular information. And anything that the CTU can do to assist in ensuring that there is consistency and uniformity in the way we collect this information and report it outwards. It's useful for our own planning purposes as well, because I think we need to know, what are the vital signs that we need to be looking for in terms of our infrastructure, and that is critical. So I would support that, and would do whatever is within my official capacity, both at the CTU and at the ministerial level, to ensure that we can have a more consistent view of the way our networks are managed and operated.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. We truly appreciate that, because we believe that, in informing the infrastructure sizing that needs to be done for the whole region, that is an exercise that definitely we need to go through. And, hopefully this is a work that with your support and all of the regions will be able to do with, OECD, for the OECD to finally include Caribbean in its LAC work. So let me see, I am seeing, I think, a question here. Kevin Swift is saying, I believe Frederic is answering my question with sets of another. Some Caribbean countries seem to do well in reporting data for ITU stats, but there may be some disconnection between the data collected and submitted and policies for the telecoms ICT sector. Is that disconnection between data collection and policy formulation a perception, or is this something observed at a higher level? Mr. Melfo?
Not so sure if I'm at full eyeballed with the question with the person who behind the question. What I can say from another realm, from another reporting system that I'm intimately involved in, and that would be something that I believe Frederick might be familiar with as well, would be the ease of doing business index that the World Bank produces on an annualized basis. And there's always a lag between what is actually happening in a particular jurisdiction, what is reported outwards, and then when the statistics are finally published. So there is a lag, and oftentimes these lags can seem as if that there is a disconnect, when in fact what we need to do is to understand and appreciate what has caused the difference in focus at the particular point in time. I think as you get closer to the road and closer to where the rubber hits the road, there may be a need sometimes for persons who are relying on sometimes these externally produced statistics to be able to have a local person to be able to give some validity to these particular statistics, because it may be dated information that they're relying on. And so that's how I would look at it. I don't necessarily know that there would be any willful intent of anyone to provide misleading information to support a particular policy position one way or the other. But I think sometimes when you're relying on these statistical information, you have to be aware sometimes that as they are developed, the fluctuation of time can change the periscope.
Sure, that is very true, because this is actually, I guess, the very essence of going digital. Things are moving while, yes, data is being collected, analyzed, and by the time we get to the full analysis, we've probably moved ahead in terms of what we're doing. Frederic, do you have something to say? Yeah?
Yes, but just to follow the comment is that this is one of the advantage of the Working Parties Organization at the OECD. We meet twice a year with the telecom experts of the representative experts of every country, every member country. So we have a direct link with them. So we know that these people can provide us with the official data, the official telecom data, and we always have someone to go back to if we have questions. And this person has uh, as a network in his own country, and this person can always go to other experts to confirm the data and to be sure that the data are robust and timely. So these meetings, this organization of meeting twice a year for us, but it could be every yearly for someone else, for another organization, are very, very useful to be sure to have accurate data.
Thank you, Frederick. I was thinking about something while we're talking here, and is there any case studies that you would say have been, both of you, have been real successes given what we have so far on digital, in terms of whom can we learn with right now in terms of their positioning? You said, Mr. Nicholas, that Antigua and Barbuda was actually was able when COVID hit to go directly to online. So what made that happen? What was how did that all happen in terms of infrastructure, in terms of policies, in terms of all of the things that were in there in country?
Yes, in Antigua's case, we had adopted a common information platform within the government itself that had allowed us to be able to go virtual when the time came, simply because our email system and the whole application system that we're using, without giving them a plug, we were utilizing the Microsoft Office 365 platform. And that allowed us to be able to go virtual in real rapid succession. And because most of the public servants were already for 3 years prior being incrementally moving onto that particular platform, it became the common place we were doing business. And because it was cloud-based, we did not have the particular challenge of having to size up and scale up. We did all of that automatically. So really, it came down to the netlinks, the connections, the speed that we had in the particular network, the LAN connections, the wide area network for the government. That was really where the bottlenecks were, and we are resizing that as we speak. So in truth and in fact, our government sits on a virtual platform, and we can continue to conduct business virtually amongst ourselves and with respective our other parties whom we have to engage with.
Well, good to know, and I hope this informs some of the ones who are, having second thoughts about going virtual for governments. There is another question in the chat from Claire, and Claire is asking, with respect to the data collection, are we as a region actually focusing on the correct areas? And are we adequately engaging the stakeholders who can help with driving this process? So we have the offices, we have the government, but it is true that often what is lacking is, the rest of the community's participation in between, I guess, the civil society and the private sector. Private sector seems to be involved often when we talk about telecoms, because the operators, of course, work all the time with the regulators and all of that. But who else is involved in data collection out there to inform what we want to do going digital?
But let me say, the question that was posed is whether or not we are actually measuring the correct things. And I've always liked to look at a development on a continuum, where we are and where OECD countries may be at a particular point in time. There may be some developmental lags, and as well as sometimes in the scheme of things, we may jump one of the development processes. So we always have to look both ways. We always have to look forward in terms of where we need to traverse, but we also need to look internally to determine what is relevant to us, because we may not need to take certain steps before we get to it. When I started this job back in 20, the World Bank that had a project looking at big data, advances within the region in terms of this big data project, but given at the time, nothing that was an imperative or that was a iteration. So the metrics, if we're against the OECD country,
We are losing you.
Of our data.
Can you hear me, Mr. Nicholas? Yes, you were
I can hear you very well.
Oh, good. Okay, now I can hear you, but you were practically frozen and we could hardly hear you. Sorry.
Well, I will restart then.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I was making the point that there are times where on any development continuum, we may need to skip a few of the gaps, or they may not be particularly relevant to our own development, as they may be in a different environment, let's say for another OECD country. And so we have a table, a board of assessments, where our particular interests may not be in that particular area. I'll give a case in point, where the World Bank had sponsored a project perhaps 5-6 years ago within the Caribbean to promote the notion of big data, where we would use public information in our data sets, anonymize them, and make that information available for further consideration for industry and for other think tanks available. And in the scheme of things, that is a tertiary requirement that we had not arrived at yet. So we may well get a low score for that within any assessment. And we may deliberately take a low score for it because it is not our priority area for us at this particular point in time. So the question that was asked, whether or not we are measuring the right things, sometimes we get caught in an envelope where we are being measured against several different criteria that we may not necessarily have an interest in all of those particular areas. So we have to be mindful of that. And in terms of where we are, if we look at the Ease of Doing Business Index, which most of our countries are familiar with, we are assessed against a global norm of, I think, 12 particular criteria. And we go up and down the scale as we change our response to some of those criteria are concerned. But, I do agree with the caller that sometimes not everything that we are being measured against, it's of an interest and an importance to us.
And thank you very much for actually giving that type of answer, because you know the one size fits all of some organizations is definitely one thing that we have to be careful about, because it is important that we as a region, you know, as Nadia said, define what it is and where is it we want to go. So Frederic, is that something that the OECD takes into account, or are you also, or do you come with your own set framework that people have to follow?
I think it's both. If we want some harmonization in the data, because it's my, once again, my field of expertise, we have to get closer to conform to some rules of data collection. But at the same time, when we do policy review, telecom review, of course, we take the national context into account to a great extent. This is, policies have to be adapted to a country, to the population, to the political and economic situation. But on the other side, if we want to compare data, we have to conform to a set of definitions, but at the same time, sometimes we have like footnote or exceptions. So we're very flexible, but we want to be rigorous on the data collection, because this is the basis after that we use for policy analysis.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, and good to know that this the OECD is flexible. I do not see any more questions or comments in the chat. Let's see. No, nothing for the moment. So I think I would like to thank you all and ask you for any more any good advice, going forward that we would like to take away from here. And what I will keep in mind is that OECD is ready to help us, and Mr. Nicholas has said CTU will make sure to do whatever is in its power to make us succeed into measuring, what we need to do for the Caribbean going digital. So your last words on this subject, Frederic, and then Mr. Nicholas to conclude.
As I said at the end of my my presentation, a bit like a bit of a challenge. It would be an interesting thing to create a kind of a data portal for connectivity, digital connectivity, but it could be just infrastructure at first, because we have to start with simple and easy to collect data for the CTU. So if the CTU had a page which was a portal comparing the different countries with time series, penetration rates, and maybe usage if the data are available, it would be very interesting, I think.
Thank you very much, Frederic. Mr. Nicholas, you're muted. You are muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to take Frederic up on that offer for the development of a data portal, and for him to submit a template for our consideration. I think that is what we must do. And if it acts as a go-to place for not only for the OECD, for think tanks within the OECD, but for industry as well, I think that would be a useful place for us to start. So I think it's a good idea. And I would like to take him up on that offer for him to submit a template for the CTU's consideration.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. I just want to say that, thank you all for coming here. Thank you both for staying with us. And I would like to say that, we have started something already with OECD, and we hope that this is really something that is going to go forward with both your support, the organization support. ARIN is more than happy to be included in this work, and we're really pushing. We'll make sure that this is something that happens. And we really, truly hope that we can, one of these days have another webinar where we can present practically the same type of information that Frederic has presented to us on the Going Digital portal for the OECD, strictly for the Caribbean, so that we can inform the development of the region in terms of infrastructure, but an infrastructure that is actually informed about what goes on it. So thank you all very much. Thank you for attending. And we hope to see you for the next webinar that is going to be next week. And that one is going to be on network security for public safety in the 21st government environment. And we will have as speakers, Christopher Painter, that some of you may know, who's a cyber diplomat and is a global commission, is part of the Global Commission on the Stability of Cyberspace. We will have Carrie Ann Barrett from the Organization of American States, who is a cybersecurity policy specialist. And we will have our very own Leslie Nobile who is the Senior Director of Global Registry Knowledge at ARIN. And actually has moved to be now our digital public policy and trust officer. So we will have the full array of basically global, regional, and then, you know, what the regional internet registries and the technical community is doing in terms of security globally for the region. So thank you very much again. And we will see you hopefully next week.
Thank you very much,
Bye.
moderator.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for
Thank you very
being
much.
with us.
Goodbye, sir.
Thanks for the read. Bye-bye.